With the brand new June major update, we got a brand new hunter in Maylene Fisher, a new shadow, new gear sets, and much more. But all those things aren't the most important thing that came with this update, as the brand new game mode, which is the Workshop of Brilliant Light, or as I like to call it, Wobble, is an extremely difficult game mode that is designed to really push your characters to the limit, which is why in today's video I'll be showing you all how you can start to beat it so you can get the best artifact sets in the game, with the main boss in both difficulties being the avaricious Vulcan, if that's how you say that. And the main rewards that you do get from this game mode are going to be the Burning gear sets, as you have the Burning Blessing gear set, the Burning Greed gear set, and then the Burning Curse gear set, which all have their own benefits. And then essentially you'll see something that looks exactly like this. And what you'll see is that you get to play as Jinwoo, but also you get to play as hunters during this game mode, with the majority of the game mode being played as hunters. As for the very first boss fight in this game mode, you'll be challenging the Cerberus boss. And essentially when you do beat this boss, you'll be able to earn some of the brand new artifact sets. And then when you beat that stage, you'll be able to unlock two new stages, which will be the Burning Overpass stage, and then also the 25th floor of the Demon's Castle. And then essentially with the Burning Overpass, what you can do in that stage is you can actually earn blessings to give your characters, hunters, Jinwoo, etc. a ton of different buffs, but you can also get different blessings that also negatively impact your enemies as well, which can also be very useful. And then on the 25th floor of the Demon's Castle, it will just be another place for you to earn some brand new artifacts as well. And then once you've beaten that stage, you'll be able to unlock the Burning Square, which will be another place for you to earn blessings. And then you'll also be greeted with the opportunity to take on the 50th floor of the Demon's Castle, where you will fight Vulcan to then hopefully get even more artifact sets, and then to potentially unlock the next difficulty being the normal difficulty. So then to start with, let's go over how you can beat the first boss, which is going to be the Cerberus boss. So then for your team, I'd recommend something like this, as 100% I would recommend Alicia Blanche, as she is an amazing DPS character that offers debuff cleansing and just also CCing. You've got a great character in Jiwoo who applies shield application. She's also now free as well, which is insane, and also does offer break damage. And then finally Maylene Fisher as well, because she's amazing just throughout this whole game mode, as she offers healing, damage increases, and just much more. And then for weapons, I use the Demonic Plumflower Sword alongside the Shadow Scythe. However, those are by far not the best weapons for this game mode, as you do have insanely good weapons like Skadi, which is an amazing new water weapon. And then you also have weapons like Thetis' Grimoire, which is another amazing water weapon that you can also use. And then for free-to-play water weapons, the Naga Guardian Dragon's Trident is going to be amazing, as this is probably the best free-to-play option in terms of a water-based DPS weapon, as pretty much every enemy in this game mode is weak to water damage, so you're going to want to be able to utilize that as much as possible, which is why a lot of those weapons are really good. However, if you don't have weapons like Thetis or Skadi or anything else like that built, you can definitely still use other weapons, just as long as it's not a fire weapon, essentially. And then for runes, the two that I'd recommend the most are going to be the Iceberg rune, which is the water element version of Armor Break, and then also Rush, which is the water element version of Multi-Strike, as these are obviously both of the water element, but do offer a good amount of break damage, whilst also being able to deal out a decent amount of damage in itself. And then for other runes that are pretty useful, you have things like Cold Storm, as you can apply a DOT, as well as the ability to freeze. Sequent Explosions, which is the water element version of Vertical Arts, is another amazing one, as you can increase the damage that enemies take whilst they're in the break state. And if you do want to find out how to build all of the hunters that I do use in this video, then there'll be a link to a playlist down below where you can watch all of my build guides for practically every SSR hunter in the game. And then also, I did just quickly forget, Blessing Stones. Pretty much all you're going to want for Blessing Stones are going to be things that increase the amount of damage that you can deal, and that's pretty much it. And onto the actual Cerberus fight itself, it's very, very similar to the actual regular Cerberus that's in the game, as the only difference with this Cerberus boss is that it creates like a tornado that will just do permanent damage to you, and it will also create laser beams around itself, which do go around in like a clockwise circle that you do have to try and avoid, and that's literally it. So if you do struggle with the Cerberus, then you can always go ahead and practice on the Encore mission, where you can actually fight the Cerberus as well. And then finally, when it does come down to the specifics of actually beating this boss, it's going to be very difficult for me to explain actually how to beat this, as it really just does come down to your knowledge of this boss currently, and just how much you know about its attack patterns and everything else. But one thing that I would definitely recommend that you do with this boss is that essentially the Cerberus boss will have an attack where it's like invulnerable to damage like for a certain amount of time, and then it will try and push you away so then it can do a bunch of ranged damage. However, if you want to prevent that from actually happening, you can actually give yourself a shield by using a supportive skill through either Jiwoo or Alicia, who do apply shields to you, as essentially if you didn't know, when you do have a shield on any character in the game, for as long as that shield is active, you technically have super armor, which means you can't be interrupted, you can't be knocked back, you can't be knocked down, etc. So that would just be one of my most important tips to do with that boss. So then once you've beaten that Cerberus boss, you'll be able to get your first ever pieces of the brand new gear sets, which is going to be pretty cool, which then leaves you with the option to either take on the 25th floor of the Demon's Castle or the Burning Overpass Overpass side stage. And 100% I would recommend that you take on the Burning Overpass stage next, as through doing this stage you'll be able to obtain blessings for Jinwoo and also your hunters, so then you can gain a ton of buffs, so then you can do a ton of extra damage when you do come to fight the main boss. And for this side stage, it's pretty self-explanatory. All it is just a ton of different enemies for you to fight. So literally any hunter that you do have in the game that does do a lot of AoE damage, with Alicia being the best one out of everyone, then for sure they'll be very, very useful for that. And then if you're still struggling for AoE damage, you can always put Shadow like Blades into your team, as Blades does offer a ton of AoE damage thanks to one of his basic skills. And then when playing through this stage, you'll be able to get a new blessing once you've completed waves 1, 3, and also 5. And all of the blessings do range from having many different effects, and the most important ones that you're going to want are going to be things that can help increase your damage later on in the run. Which then brings us onto the 25th floor of the Demon's Castle. And this stage is actually pretty difficult, as you have to fight 3 elite monsters in a row, and then you then have to go on to fight the actual main boss. And then for how I personally beat this stage, it was just simply by brute forcing my way through it, using my 2 best DPS characters in Char and Alicia, and then an amazing damage support in Min Byung-gu. But you could also use someone like Maylene Fisher as well, who is also amazing. However, I just personally do prefer Min Byung-gu. So let's start off with the very first enemy that you do face, and the annoying thing about this enemy is that he does go invisible, which does make him invulnerable to damage. So the fact that you can't deal damage to him is really annoying, as it is pretty much just wasting your time, which does mean things like effects like inflicting airborne on this enemy is going to be very useful, which is characters like Charhain can do really well. So essentially your goal when fighting this enemy is going to be able to inflict things like airborne and all the other things like knockdown as much as you possibly can, and also inflicting things like stuns through Alicia's ability to freeze and just other things like that. And then hopefully with something like Char's ultimate, you'll be able to take it out and then be ready to go on to the next elite monster. And this elite monster and also the next one as well after are pretty easy, as the second one is a little bit annoying, as it does do this massive burst of damage that is pretty much unavoidable unless if you do break it. However, in this strategy I didn't break it at all, as I just wanted to have as much damage as I possibly could. So essentially the plan with this one is just to basically have your Min Byung-gu tank the damage, as he will be the bulkiest character on your team, I'm assuming anyways. And then you can also support him with things like Alicia's shield to make sure he doesn't die in 2 shots, or if you do have enough damage, you'll only have to take that explosion damage once and then you can just take him out afterwards. Which brings me on to the third one, and the gimmick with the third one is basically that it will absorb a type of element damage, and I believe my only times through actually playing it only ever absorbed wind and also dark elemental damage. So when building teams for this, you'll probably want to avoid using those elemental characters. And that's pretty much it with this elite monster. It doesn't do anything else apart from the normal attacks it will actually do. And then the very final enemy you'll face in this stage will be the actual boss, and this boss is essentially just a fusion of all of the previous elite monsters that you've already faced. However, this one doesn't actually go invisible, so you'll be safe with that anyways. So essentially everything that you do in the previous 2 elite monsters that you do fight, you've just got to apply to this one, and then you'll be pretty good to go. So then all that's left is for you to get your final set of blessings at the Burning Square, to which you can then go ahead and challenge the very final boss on the 50th floor of the Demon's Castle. So then for the Burning Square, again, it's pretty self-explanatory, just like the previous way of obtaining blessings, as you basically just defeat waves of enemies, and then on waves 1, 3, and also 5, you'll be able to obtain blessings. However, in my run, I wasn't actually able to obtain 3 different blessings on this stage, as I just didn't have enough damage to beat the final enemies. However, the only difference in this stage is basically instead of fighting multiple monsters at once, you do fight 1 boss at a time pretty much, apart from one stage which has 2, which is why this one is a lot more difficult, as you do need a lot of single target damage. Which then finally brings me onto the very last boss, which is Vulcan. And essentially the strategy that you applied to beat the Cerberus will pretty much apply to fighting this boss as well, as pretty much all the same weapons, skills with their runes, and also blessing stones will all be just as good as they were in the Cerberus in this boss fight. However, the hunters that you use to support your Jinwoo are actually a lot more important in this stage, as essentially once you get to a certain point in this fight, Vulcan will actually give himself a shield which you need to break very quickly, or else you're going to meet yourself with some pretty nasty consequences. So in order to prevent that from happening, we do use a character like Maylene Fisher, as Maylene Fisher's support skill, which is called Help Berry, will not only be able to give you an attack and also damage reduction increase, but it will also be able to heal you, and the most important thing about this is that it can also remove shields instantly, which overall gives this support skill a huge amount of damage and a huge amount of value in this fight. And for those of you that didn't actually end up pulling Maylene Fisher, or don't have enough summons or whatever to be able to pull her, there is another option that you can use, and that is going to be Hwang Dongsu, as Hwang Dongsu's support skill Cold-Blooded Connection can also actually remove shields as well, which is amazing, and also makes him just a really good hunter for this fight, which makes running at least one of those 2 characters a must-have when you fight this stage, stage, as you want to be able to break that shield as fast as you possibly can. And then for the other hunters that you do bring for your support skills, I would recommend bringing characters that can either do a lot of damage or increase the amount of damage that your enemies will take, or just characters that help you and support you in dealing break damage. So here's a list of very good characters that you can use for this stage. As overall, you have Mei Lin Fisher and Dongsu, who I mentioned before. You have Seo Jiwoo, Alicia Blanche, Lee Bora, Min Byung-gu, Baek Yoon-ho, and also Cha Hain are all amazing SSR hunters that you can use. And then for SR hunters that you can bring to this stage, you have characters like Nam Chae-young and Anna Ruiz, as they are of the water element. And then also Park Hee-jin is very good because she can increase your ultimate skill damage through her support skill. So then onto the actual fight itself, and there's not really much else left to mention about this whole thing, as it is pretty much just up to you now to be able to beat this boss and learn its attack patterns, as dodging is an extremely important part of this, as this Vulcan enemy will have a ton of AoE damage for you to dodge, and pretty much if you do let it hit you too many times, then you will just die so quickly. And then the only other things I really recommend is basically just try and summon your shadows as much as possible, because they'll do more damage than you think. And then finally, there'll be a bit in the fight where you can't actually deal damage to the boss, as he'll come up like the side of the stage and will be able to drop down a huge amount of damage onto the field. However, the game will tell you to move inside of a safe zone, which essentially just means when you do get in that zone, you'll be able to be completely immune from the damage that the Vulcan boss is about to do. And I'm pretty sure they do spawn in the same two spots every single time, so once you've seen it once, you'll be able to know where they are again. So then after everything I've told you, you should be able to be ready to beat the Vulcan boss, assuming you do have really good gear pieces, weapons, and stuff like that, etc. However, once you have beaten the Vulcan boss, you'll be able to get some nice rewards and stuff, which then does leave you with one other choice, as once you've been easy mode, you'll be able to unlock normal mode. However, normal mode for literally practically every player in this game is going to be way too difficult for anybody to even consider beating. However, what you can actually do in medium difficulty is just go ahead and beat the Cerberus, as the Cerberus boss will be just as strong as Vulcan was on easy difficulty. So if you can beat Vulcan on easy, you can definitely beat the Cerberus on medium, as in medium difficulty you can actually gain the highest level of the gear pieces from the brand new gear sets, and you can actually get them of the legendary rarity. So instead of going through the whole game mode again on easy difficulty, instead what you can do is you can go to medium difficulty and then only fight the Cerberus, so then you can get the legendary rarity of the brand new artifact sets, so then you can get way stronger, way quicker, so then you can challenge the 25th floor of the Demon's Castle and all of the other blessing stages, so then you can finally go ahead and beat Vulcan on medium difficulty. So there you have it, that is a complete guide into the brand new Workshop of Brilliant Light game mode, as well as a brief overview of the brand new update, and it was very difficult to try and put as much information as possible into such a short amount of time. So if you do have any questions at all, then leave them down in the comments below, and I will try my best to answer them as much as I can, and I'll try my best to help you all as much as possible. But overall, if you did enjoy this video or you found it useful just in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as it helps a ton, and click the link down below to support me as a creator, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!